Hey guys, let's get straight to reading. We are reading Steve Chandler's Shift Your Mind, Shift the World. Okay? So I'm just going to get straight to it. Chapter 27 is Survey Says, Give Us a Faster Horse. Quote here. If I had asked my colleagues what they wanted, they would have said a faster horse. Henry Ford didn't end up listening to his customers. He listened instead to his inner voice. His mind shift was a shift from worried poll taking to a more intuitive, creative voice. How do people like Henry Ford create great things? By just listening to others, by taking their orders, or by going into the slowed down silence of a goof off day of solitude, a glorious day wherein genius thrives and a new idea bursts from the right side of the brain to the newly harmonized left. Most people don't create surprising new things in their day. They are too busy trying to do too many time worn things at once. Most of the people I know think they are starting their day with too many things to do. I started coaching Renata by asking her how her life was. And she said she had too many things to get done and not enough time. That's a formula, I said, for a very miserable, frustrating life. She asked why. I said it was because she was trying to live in the future, like a fly bouncing against the window pane, trying to get into the house. Did you ever see the horror film The Fly? That's how most busy people live, buzzing and pounding against the glass, trying to get into their own future. They think it's a better place. But right now is a mess for them. Right now is chaos. Right now is a million things to do as Renata fumbles with her cell phone in her car, not noticing the light has changed. She almost blew her mind out in a car, all from having too much to do and not enough time to do it. But true real world success, not to mention happiness, comes from not having too much to do. It comes from only having one thing to do. Just this one thing, right here, right now. Chapter 28. If only I were that beautiful. Most all people wish they were prettier. They think to themselves, if I were beautiful, I'd be happy. If I were rich, I'd be happy. If I were rich and beautiful, like one of those models on TV, I'd be really happy. I'd have it all. Okay, but then why did this beautiful young woman I see pictured in the morning paper commit suicide? 20-year-old model Ruslana Korshinova jumped to her death from the ninth floor balcony of her New York City apartment. She had been on the cover of all the top magazines. She was famous. She was beautiful. What could possibly have been that bad? Here is what was bad: her thinking. She was, and I think we can know this without knowing her all, troubled by her thoughts, unable to let thoughts pass her by like clouds, unable to not believe her thoughts, unable to experience a shift in her mind. In the accounts I read of her death, all kinds of people rushed around, speculating on the circumstances that led to her suicide. A love affair gone wrong, some major money setbacks. They tried so hard to explain it circumstantially, but they will never find the real reason because they don't have her thoughts to examine. They don't know what she was believing. That's the one part of the CSI work at the suicide scene that will never show up. What was she thinking? Because if we knew the thoughts she was believing, we'd see that she really felt she had no choice but to jump, believing believing what she was believing in the final moment. The mind shift one experiences that allows disengagement from believing one's thoughts is so liberating that once you've seen it, it's hard to imagine going back into those beliefs. It's hard to imagine believing for very long the kind of thought that would compel you to jump. It's hard to imagine. It's hard to fully remember the nasty, adhesive belief that kept you stuck on the negative thought. When you unquestionably believe something negative, there's no shift available, no access to the gear shift in your mind. When I was a little boy growing up, I was scared of bullies. They never really hurt me looking back, but they scared me. Isn't it weird how it's always the thought of something, the anticipation of it, that brings the worst fear? Never the thing itself. Once the thing itself arrives, it's already over and done, and we are just okay. But because of my inability to shift away from the thought that bullies were real threats to me, I suffered. It's a real enlightened parent who can teach the availability of a mind shift. Not many can even see it for themselves. So the child, in this case me, looked for salvation elsewhere. Sometimes in comic books about Mighty Mouse, my hero. I was soon pretending I was Mighty Mouse. Then I was okay. I'd found a new thought, a happy one. Mighty Mouse represented possibility. I wrote about the refuge I took in my dependency on Mighty Mouse in the book Fearless, and some people have already responded to that by sending me pictures of Mighty Mouse. I wrote that just seeing his picture still made me remember good feelings. So people have sent me his picture, wanting me to feel those good feelings again. I thank you. Just seeing him flying in to save the day allows my mind to remember the feeling. So thank you. But today, I don't have to seek imaginary refuge in a comic book hero, or in the Avengers, or in a Tony Robbins pep rally, or in a Beyonce concert. Maya Angelou once said, "Music was my refuge. I could crawl into the space between the notes and curl my back to loneliness." Wow. But my true refuge is not out there, it's within. Within? Within my ego? No, it's deeper than that, below and beyond that. It is prior to thought, prior to sound. It's in the deep. It's It's rolling there always. Chapter 29. Why do children teach us so much? It's fun to watch children, to talk to them and really see how they love to learn and grow. We can observe so much. Children spend most of their time in the alpha brainwave state. That's why children learn so effortlessly. Notice how they easily learn a second language. As Peter Ragnar says, all an infant needs to do is listen and imitate. But adults, with an assortment of concerns and mental stresses, struggle with it as if it were a great task. An infant raised in a relaxed, carefree, mentally enriching environment absorbs like a sponge. Accessing this alpha state is a true mind shift. It happens when we dream. It happens in meditation. It happens during hypnosis. And it happens during any kind of deep relaxation and falling out of personal thinking. The anxious, left brained beta state is another story. It's a version of the worried mind most people bring to their day's work. But sometimes just closing your eyes and taking a deep breath and picturing the ocean within can allow the shift that gives you the peaceful idea you've been waiting for. Chapter 30. Catching Life by the Handle. Bad news from corporate. Good news from home. Bad news from the world of baseball. Good news from my best friend. Bad news from my daughter's school. Good news from my doctor. Bad news from the evening news. No wonder I'm crazy. Swung back from one polarity to the other. It's a wonder that everyone isn't bipolar, swinging from the opposite poles, swinging from the opposite poles all day of bad news and good news. And to further complicate my thinking, a lot of what I thought was bad news last month actually turned out to be good. Bad news that my grandmother fell and hurt herself became good news that she's in a retirement village she now loves with better safety and companionship. Why does it happen so often that bad turns to good? I could shift I wish I could shift my mind so that it now suspends all judgment. Maybe that would slow things down so that I can always catch the knife by the handle. When it's the bad news knife being thrown at me, I could then handle it because I know that I can convert it into something good eventually if I give it half a chance and a little imagination. And if it's the good news knife, I can just catch it and be grateful. I would win either way. Chapter 31. See, chapter 31. Optimism is a user-friendly program. Once, while I was in the airport waiting to fly away, I noticed people running around, frantically opening laptops and chattering into cell phones and dashing from gate to gate. I began to wonder, What are they chasing? It has to be stories, right? Chasing the stories about the things they think they need. Chasing relationships, money, new cars, granite countertops, and validation of their excellent parenting. I do this too? Oh, yes. Looking for life in all the wrong places. Not understanding the word within. Not stopping to allow everyday good fortune to inspire me. Drawing my sword and seeking better kingdoms in distant lands. And why do I forget that the kingdom is already here? It's the kingdom that has been described for thousands of years as within. I'm here in Atlanta working with my clients at a large company to show them that the technology of the mind that knows how to shift can match their peerless technology on the factory floor. Or at least that's the language I use I use to avoid sounding like a practitioner of New Age soft training. I'm showing them on a slide that the brain can use the technology of optimism as a proven biocomputer program to open up creativity and solution thinking. And without such a shift, they will buy into the common erroneous wisdom that says optimism is a personality trait you're either born with or without, like a hardwired sunny disposition. And the optimist, in the common everyday perception, is a happy, glad handing, idiotic, beaming, smiling, false front of upbeat mannerisms. Actually, optimism is tougher than all that. Optimism, when it's real, is a powerful, precise, teachable tool for unlocking the right side of the brain and all its practical functions. Dr. Martin Seligman conducted studies of over 500,000 people over 20 years. He scientifically validated two important findings in those studies. One, optimism is more effective than pessimism. And two, optimism can be learned. Shocking, it can be learned. Aren't we stuck with our personalities? If a person is moody, is she not permanently moody, as permanent as her blue eyes? Goodness, no. When you read learned optimism, you learn that you can dispute any pessimistic thought that appears. It's nothing permanent. It can disappear like a rain cloud across the sky of your mind. Dispute it, challenge it, question it, question it. Make the case for a greater possibility than a thought can hold. Make the case for more options open to you than gloom. It's as if you had a higher self that you don't call on much, except in a huge crisis. But if you called on it more and more, it would become more present. It would reveal itself to be the real you, because that pessimistic voice in you is a very small blip on the radar screen of who you really are. Why let it rule? Just allow the shift in your mind up to optimism. All right, guys, I'm gonna stop at chapter 32, and we'll continue reading tomorrow.